Welcome back to the FloTrack podcast. I'm Kevin Sully, joined by Gordon Mack, FloTrack podcast at gmail.com. You can find the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and on our website, flotrack.org/FloTrack podcast. Gordon, we're going to talk about something that's your maybe favorite topic in track and field, which is rules within USATF and really getting into the minutia. I know that's why you wake up every day.
Yeah, it's why I got involved with the sport, to talk about minutia. How do you even spell minutia?
I think it's MIN and then a bunch of other letters. U is in
Yeah,
there. A T is in there.
that would
Uh,
that would be a good spelling bee word, minutia, because
yeah,
everyone knows it, but no one knows how to quite spell it.
that's true. That's true. What we're discussing here is the ambiguity. Another spelling bee word, if you want. Oh, that's probably pretty low level. That'd be a first round word for you. Ambiguity around whether or not times that athletes run this summer can be used for 2021 Olympic trials qualifiers. World Athletics said previously that no times could be used for Olympic qualifiers or world rankings until the end of November. But we don't know if that's the case. We've heard conflicting reports on whether that's the case for Olympic trials marks. Obviously, that impacts a larger group of people because there's more people in the trials in the Olympics, especially from the American side of things. But what's your thought process here about this issue?
Well, let's just kind of do a timeline of how we came to this point for those who don't know. So basically, what is it? June 1st, was it, when they made the announcement for the new rules?
Oh, got me on
Let's
that
assume
one.
it's
I thought
June.
you said
I think it's June 1st, early June. Anyway, so let's take even farther back.
go
Obviously,
farther back. Take me way
go
back.
farther.
Take us back to Albuquerque when you and I were sitting in the
Yeah,
stands. NCAA indoors was about to start, and then all of a sudden, everybody left.
so COVID happens and the track world starts shutting down. Right, the Olympics trials get postponed. The Olympics then get postponed. All these big meets, especially local meets, get postponed or canceled.
Mhm.
And during this whole time, USATF is trying to put out like news about their new rules about like, hey, when we're going to come back, and kind of trying to keep athletes and coaches and meet directors in the know about how they're planning to handle this pandemic situation with track meets and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What happened was most meets were canceled, right? But now they're seeing that like, hey, meets might be able to happen in the second half of the summer, notably August and September and October, because we saw like the Diamond Leagues coming back, some international meets are coming back. And so USATF put out a statement about how to put on a track meet in the world of COVID, right? And
Right.
most people aren't going to read this document. I don't really care how USATF is going to put on a track meet in the year of COVID. There's probably like 10 people in the entire country who care, and those 10 people are going to be 10 meet directors who actually care.
Mm-hmm.
Meet directors who actually are like trying to put on a USATF sanctioned meet. So
Mm-hmm.
this document gets published, and the meet directors look at it and like, wait a minute, we're not going to be able to, if you run a 330 338 1500, that time won't count to qualify you for the Olympic trials. Why is anyone like, why are we putting on a meet then? Like
Mm-hmm.
if all the marks that people run don't count towards Olympic trials, what's the point of putting on a meet? And it's even more important because if you think about this, say you are an athlete who was trying to qualify for the Olympic trials, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like an up and coming athlete. Say this was a year of 20, people would really try to, they're not most people, but like there's maybe 30% of people qualifying for the trials, maybe even more, are probably going to try to hit that mark in the spring of 2020, right? Spring slash
Correct.
early summer of 2020. You have those last chance meets. I want to make the trials. That's when they try to do it, right? Now, obviously, they couldn't do it because they took away all those meets. And
Mm-hmm.
now they're saying like, oh, so then, but some of those athletes are still fit, and they're like, hey, can I try to qualify in August of 2020? Why do I have to sit on my ass until December of 2020. And really, if you think about it, because it's probably easier for some of them to qualify, especially like in sprint events. It's probably easier to
Mhm.
qualify not indoors. So some of these athletes are going to be sitting on fitness for an entire year. They're not going to be having really a true chance to qualify for the Olympic trials until April of 2021, and they were ready to go in April of 2020. So, like, it's just like, are we supposed to expect athletes to just wait a year before they start like getting in shape again? Whereas
Yeah.
a lot of these athletes are like, hey, we have an entire second half of 2020 where regulations and starting to open up and people are starting to allow to put on some track meets. Why are we just going to throw that window out the door because of
You
a
threw a
stupid
window out
rule
the
you
door
create?
just there.
Yeah, throw
That
the
is
window out
tough
the
to throw a
door,
window.
dude. I've thrown windows out the doors. It's a big moment. Yeah, that'd be a
That's
good
really
meme.
bad.
Throwing the window out the door. Anyway, so basically, they created this rule saying all the times that you run in the summer aren't going to count for
Yeah,
these Olympic
yeah.
trials. And on paper, it's like, yeah, it makes sense because that's what World Athletics is doing. Who cares? But when you really think about it, the opportunity for these smaller meet director meets, these Portland meets, these Music City Distance Carnivals, Miler meets, the Sound Running meets that Jesse Williams puts on in LA. They're
Hmm.
like, why? What the hell? So I
Well,
think USATF, and then basically Letron kind of put well, the meet directors started tweeting about it. They're like, what the hell? And then Letron, John Gall kind of interviewed them. They were like, yeah, this is stupid. I got some calls from coaches being like, this is stupid. And I was like, they're like, why are they doing this? It's like, because USATF is stupid. Not stupid. I think they don't think before they do sometimes because they have a history of doing this type of stuff. And then eventually the USATF was like, oh shit, yeah, that doesn't make sense. And now they're starting to try to walk it back, which is good news.
mhm.
I went on a 10-minute rant just to say that USATF didn't think what they were doing was a big deal, and then these 10 meet directors created into a big deal. And now they realize, oh shit, we actually should let them run.
Yeah. Well, the World Athletics rules, at the time, I think make sense because yes, the time is a flat, like it's a flat standard, right? You make it, you're in. But in essence, you are competing against other people, right? Because in some events, not enough people get the standard and they fill the field, right? So you would be at an advantage even if you missed the qualifying time by a tenth of a second, but you're the next one on that list. You would be in an advantageous position, right? If you were able to get in a race and run that time. So I understand that because throughout the world, everybody's under different circumstances with lockdown, so it's not fair. Within the United States, though, by August, if if there aren't any travel restrictions and people are able to move about freely and safely to get to these meets and it abides by all the guidelines, then you'd say, well, everybody has almost an equal opportunity to get to all these meets and to run these times. Ergo, you could open the qualifying window back up. I think that's what the meet directors would be arguing here. Correct?
Yeah, yeah, because there's maybe I don't notice, but if you live in Maine, you're allowed to fly to Texas or you're allowed to fly to California, right?
Currently, yeah. Well, now I just saw this morning the governor of New York talking about potentially putting in a quarantine for people coming from Florida for 14 days, which was interesting because the opposite happened, I believe, earlier in the year with people leaving New York and going to other states and having a mandated quarantine. So yes, it's very. I mean, all this stuff should have 6 asterisks by it, right? All this stuff should say tentative, 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 effective until we find out further information. But if people are able to fly and reasonably compete, because I do see it as an equity, and if one part of the country is not able to travel because of a pandemic and compete, then they are at a disadvantage during the qualifying window. And you can say, well, they could just run the qualifying standard themselves. Well, that is true, but again, they do have these situations where they have to fill fields with a descending order list, And in that case, someone's going to be an advantage, even if they don't get the time, but they were the next fastest or the fourth fastest, right? I mean, especially that 1500, which I think is an important one to note. Like, it's always insanely competitive. The part that I think is also noteworthy, though, is, do you think someone like, I don't know, Jenny Simpson is worried about a trials qualifier?
No,
So whether or
she's
not
not.
she competes, yeah, whether or not she competes this summer, or whether or not Ben Blankenship competes this summer, or whoever, that is going to be more. That's going to hinge more on whatever World Athletics decides. So we're talking about a group of people that are trying to scratch and claw to get into the trials. We're not necessarily talking about people we would consider favorites to make the Olympic team.
Here's why that matters, though, because our sports foundation. Now, I don't mean to say people are trying to get into the trials are the same as the participation people, because I'm not saying that, just for the
Are
record.
you gonna do the? You're
But
gonna go full Carl Lewis here and be like, we need to cut this down. There needs to be.
no, no. But the thing is, like, if you're putting on a track meet, right? You put on a track meet. Say you have 5 events, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Probably at the best, you probably are going to have 2 to 3 in each event that
Hmm.
are people want to watch, like a Jenny Simpson or Sensuitz or Craig Angles, right? So you have 5 events, and say 2 per race are actually like good, good enough where they don't care about getting Olympic trials qualifiers. They're just there to run fast, have a good race, whatever. So
Yeah.
that's 10 people, right? But you're not going to put on a track meet which is 2 people racing each other, right? You're not going to do that. And the track meet only survives if
Are you talking about
you have
trials? Or are you talking about? Are you talking about trials? Or are you talking about these other meets?
these other meets. So these
Oh
other
yeah,
meets,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I'm saying is like you need to give the non-elites, the non-Jenny Simpsons, a reason to get on an airplane to go to this meet. Jenny
Right, right.
Simpson's reason to get on an airplane to go to a meet is because she's a world-class athlete. She wants to get some racing tune-ups and, maybe rip a fast one. But
Yeah,
for these people who are trying to qualify for Olympic trials, you need to give them that
yeah,
nugget. Because if they don't have that nugget, they're going to be like, why would I go to get destroyed by Jenny Simpson? This is a waste of my time. I should just keep training.
yeah.
And so
So
that's what
you're
these meet
saying,
directors saying is like, hey, we need this carrot in order to get 80% of our field. Like,
okay,
we'll
yeah,
get 20% of our field with the elites, but we need the 80% because they're going to pay a meet fee. They're going to help put up, like, a lot of times the money it takes to put on a meet is paid for by
yeah,
athlete entry fees, right?
yeah. I get. So
So
you're saying this is a more of a meet thing than than a athlete thing, because you're saying
yeah,
any athlete who wants to get that trial standard, even if they have a blackout window through November, they still have December, January, February, March, April, May to get it, and that's enough of a window to try to run a trials qualifier. You're just saying for these meets that aren't Diamond League level, these U.S. circuit meets, it puts them in a bad spot, because why would you spend the money, invest the time to run in a race that does not get you the trials qualifier? Am I understanding you correctly?
yeah. Well, the meet director needs to get as many people in the races as they can,
Right. Yeah.
and if you take away the carrot of for all the fringe trials qualifiers to come to the meet, then that
Yeah.
just removes the amount of people who are willing to come to your meet drastically. And now all of a sudden you're like, am I really just going to only have a meet with like 4 people in each race?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna be good, but like, who's gonna pay for it, right? Because you maybe have to pay them a parents fee, and then all of a sudden you're just like you're in the hole, right? You
Well,
need
yeah.
these people to come in, like, yeah, I'll give you $50 to be in this race, and then that adds up, right?
Yeah. Well, and pacers too. Like, if you want
Yeah,
Jenny Simpson to run fast, sometimes she's being paced by somebody who's entered in a different event, who's there in the first place because they wanted to get a trial standard. Here's where I think this goes, and here's what I think needs to happen. And this is true even if the window is open today. This is true even if you have to wait until December to get a qualifying time. I think they need to figure out a way, USATF, whoever, to put some outdoor meets in the traditional indoor part of the schedule next year, be it February early March, maybe even into January. Get some outdoor meets on the schedule to give people plenty of time to get those qualifying marks. I think that's where this needs to go. And at that point, the Olympic window will be open as well, assuming everything stays on course. So you could have both of those things as possibilities, trials and Olympic Games qualifiers. And it doesn't need to be many. It doesn't need to be many, but a meet like an Oxy type setup needs to happen, I think, during that indoor season, because people going and running an indoor mile where it's tough to run fast unless you're at BU, right? Is not what the athletes are really going to be clamoring for after not being able to race outdoors in 2020 much.
Well, I mean, I think the main thing also you think about is like sprinters, like they're not qualifying for 200 indoors. They don't have the 100-meter dash. They don't have the
Yeah,
110
yeah.
hurdles. Like it's a waste of a lot of these short sprinter people's times to be even doing some indoor events when they know they need to get as many opportunities to qualify in the outdoor events. I know you like, yeah, I love what you just said though. It just, even you in a weird way just said a statement that I feel like is naive about the reality of the situation. You said the phrase USATF should put on some meets in January and February. USATF isn't going to do that shit. They don't got the money. They're not going to put on meets. They're not going to spend the
Well,
money to put on a meet.
they put on Oxy. They put on Oxy. That's a real meet. I
Yeah,
okay.
that's one.
Somebody
But they're
yeah.
like USATF lives off of the collegiate system putting on these meets and paying for all this stuff.
Yep.
They live off of Mount SAC director. So USATF relies on people like a Mount SAC to put on a meet. And those Mount SAC
Yeah.
people only put on that meet because they get all the entry fees from all the high school coaches and all the college coaches to pay for it. You know, like it's like
Yeah.
it's all like a pyramid scheme in a weird way where they're all just trying to get to
No,
the lowest denominator of
not exactly a pyramid
hobby
scheme. Yes.
jogger, like young high school kid coach to like mass entries. So therefore it can pay for
Yeah, the
having
bottom
the elite
subsidized to the
event
top.
at the top. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So I'm
yeah.
saying
I always
USATF,
use it.
I don't think USATF would ever in their right mind put on a meet on their own. They will just ask. They will just be like,
Well,
say thank you to Jesse Williams for putting on a meet in December, or a Portland track, the Portland track people putting on a meet in
festival. Yes.
March.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. No,
USATF
I
isn't
mean,
gonna do shit though.
well, they put on. I
Sorry,
mean, Oxy's a real meat. Oxy's a real meat. Oxy's a real meat. That's not a real meat.
it's
But
so they put on.
that's one.
So
I know
they
it's
put
just
on.
one, but that's one. It's still one.
Yeah,
So you do that. Look, I'm just saying you do one in December, one in January, one in February, one in March, like 4 total, and maybe they pick up one, and the other ones are picked up by people you were talking about before. Maybe it is a sunset tour that goes into the winter months, or maybe they are able to do something at Mount SAC. You're right. I use it more as a blanket term of like there will be an appetite for meets in
yeah.
the winter months for everybody. Sprinters, you bring up a good point. Although when we talk about sprinters qualifying for the Olympics, that's never really too much of a problem in terms of getting their qualifying times, because so many people in the United States, because US is really strong in those events, already has the standard. But I mean, I guess more my point is, it seems like people would want to do it, so they would get interest to put it on. Is that enough money to make it worth it? I don't know. I don't have access to the books to tell you that. But from the Olympic trials fringe contender all the way through Diamond League quality person who just doesn't happen to have the Olympic standard, I think they would want to run in January, February.
Yeah, and I also think
Are you gonna want to go to Milrose? I mean, there'll be money there, right? Are you gonna want to go to Milrose if you don't have the 1500 standard, or are you gonna want to go to a place where it's set up to run super fast? Because we've seen this decision before. And it's not a decision between indoor and outdoor. It's a decision between a U.S. championship and BU, right? Yeah. And a lot of people, or a U.S. championship and running at Dempsey, and a lot of people choose to go for the fast time to chase the fast time. Like, they're not necessarily running the meet that's on TV, they're trying to get the time. So if they were willing to do that in previous years, I think especially so when fewer people have the actual standard. Gordon is yawning for those of you not watching. He's so bored with my argument that he's physically yawning into the microphone. After all he does, he just comes on, he makes a bunch of spurious claims about meats being held and governing bodies, and then he's just going to yawn.
I just think though, I'm excited because like you said, you actually kind of true
rules.
about the minutia of chaos, right?
What do you want to have happen though?
A Pandora's box is coming. I just want to say, when are the trials next year? July?
No, they're in June.
July, right? June. End of June?
No. Yeah, they're right after
okay,
NCAA's. Yeah.
June of 2021. There's gonna be a Pandora's box, and it's gonna be broken open because there's going to be, say someone runs a fast time in this window, right?
Which window?
During this time, say USATF says you can run a fast time in August and we'll count it towards trials, right? So say
you're saying
say someone say someone goes out and runs like 3:34, right?
Yeah.
And then most of the people, and say they go in and they probably have the second fastest time on the books, right? And they have the world standard, but it doesn't count as a world standard. But they have the second fastest time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the trials happens and they finish like third or whatever. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, they finish in the top 3, but basically
they don't have the Olympic qualifiers. What you're saying?
They don't have the Olympic qualifier, but they do have it in the window where it wasn't allowed. And also their ranking is going to be lower, even though the ranking would have been higher if they included that 3:34 they ran in August of 2020. And there's going to be like this person who could be not chosen because their ranking is better because when you take out the August races, they get bumped ahead of them. And there's going to be just like this, like, I have a better resume, but the rule book says the other guy has a better resume. And there's just going to be that little bit of a drama of like, who gets to go. That's why.
Yeah, the odds of that are long though. And maybe it's going to be a situation where agent of chaos like yourself predicts the 9 things that have to happen, but that's predicated on someone running an Olympic trials time or Olympic qualifying time this summer, which is fast. So they'd have to be able to run a fast one this summer and then not replicate it though. So they're fast enough to run it now, but not replicating it before the trials. And then finishing in the top 3 in the trials. I mean, aren't we always just essentially arguing about the 1500? All these arguments just come down to the 1500.
Men's 1500, because the women's 1500, they're good. They run fast. Yeah. Women know how to run fast.
Maybe
the men don't.
And sometimes the 10,000, because I remember the women's 10,000 in 2012 was tough to sort out when they crossed the line. Wait, who's actually going? And I know last year outdoors in the 5,000 there was some issues there because
women's 800.
Kincaid. Women's 800?
Oh, so
didn't the top 3 make it?
Yeah, the person Sierra Brown didn't even make the final, and she got selected.
Well, that's because they got the bonus one with Ajay, right?
Yeah, but the 4th place, 5th place, 6th place, 7th place, and 8th place person all didn't go.
Right. Well, that could have been trouble, but the 3 people who had the standard happened to go 1, 2, 3. That's an additional entry. I'm talking about when you're watching it on TV. Do you know that the 3 people crossing the line are for sure going to go? And in that case, you did. But the 1500 not ever seems never seems to be the case for the 1500 for the men, and the 5 and the 10 are tricky. What if they just held meets just for those events, just like the anti-chaos theory games, we'll call them that, and you get the best rabbit, you get that wavelight technology that they use at the Impossible Games, and they just every week it's a men's 1500 or a women's 8 or whatever, men's 5.
They already do that. They already do that. There's so many more distance carnivals and sprint carnivals or jump carnivals. Like
but just that, like don't even have the women's, don't even have out of respect, don't even have like
The women's 1500.
Don't even have
Yeah.
the men's 800. Just be like, we're not going to do the men's 800 because, well, actually, that's a bad example too. Because that one, what was up with was it just because the standard was a little harder last year? There was more standard stuff
Well,
last year than it
Isaiah
had been.
Harris was coming in late. Harris
Yeah, he
was
was.
not
Yeah,
in shape yet and stuff. So I don't
yeah,
know. I'm excited for it. Hopefully, just chaos happens. And I mean, we were so
but don't.
hoping for the chaos in the 100 meters when Ronnie Baker didn't have the standard, and he still doesn't have the standard. That would have been
Yeah,
amazing if he gets top 3 and runs into a headwind and it doesn't, or no, into a tailwind and it doesn't count. That would
yeah.
have been amazing.
That was
We were
so
so
wild.
close to
No
getting
one.
that.
Well, and
No
that
one knew it
one
was happening.
was. No one knew what was happening, and that is why I don't discount out of hand the chaos scenario that you propose, because what almost happened in the 100 was that triple bank shot. Right, he was hurt early in the year, didn't race, finally came back. First round, right, was wind legal, but he eased up, so he didn't get the standard. Right, and then was it the semis? He ran fast enough, but it was wind aided, or it was into a headwind, so he ran slower, something like that. And then we're like, oh my gosh, if he gets top 3 and it's windy, he's not going to have the time standard, because we looked up when the window closed and he didn't finish top 3, so it did not become an issue. But my
But he
goodness,
almost did.
it was close to happening. Yeah. Well, and in the 100 too, you just do not see that coming in the 100. And then we all know what happened in the 200. That was a complete train wreck there.
Oh, yeah. No one
I
runs the
mean,
200 anymore.
well, then you have, yeah, Kenny
Outside
Bednarek
Noah
gets
Lyles,
hurt.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's Lyles and everybody else. Lyles and everybody else.
I think Michael Norman needs to retire from the 400 just for the entertainment purposes of the people and only be a 200-meter runner to be Lyles' rival.
Yeah.
Like we don't, I don't know. I just we need someone to like challenge Lyles, right? In Lyles' best event, because Coleman challenges Lyles, but Coleman is not a good 200-meter runner, and Lyles is kind of not
Well, he's good.
expected
He's
to
just not
win
as
the
he's not as good
100.
as
Yeah.
Lyles. Like,
So that we need someone who's as good as Lyles, and the only person in the world who's as good as Lyles in a 200 didn't run the 200 at Worlds. It's Michael
yeah,
Norman. He
yeah.
beat him. Like, isn't that wild that the second best 200-meter runner in the world did not run the 200? That's just wild.
No, that's not for the 200. How about
I
this,
mean, it's not.
Gordon? How about
Yeah, happened in the women's side too. Yeah.
what if I told you the women's side, the best 200-meter runner in the world didn't run the 200, not the second best, the best. Shani Miller-Weibo was clearly the best in the world last year in that event and didn't get to raise it because of schedule. Well, did you watch Lyles's 300-meter time trial?
Yeah.
Yeah. People look at that and they
Were you
say, well,
impressed by it?
yeah, yeah. I think the range is. I mean, I don't know the time from anything. What 31 was a hand time 31.5 or something. Um,
Yeah. So I wasn't that impressed with the time.
just the versatility is
Yeah.
impressive though, from 100 all the way up to 400. I'd like to see him in everything.
Well, yeah.
I'd
I
like to
mean,
see him in.
Noah Lyles can run a 44-second 400 backwards. Like, if you're a
The amount of people you just
19.5
assume
guy,
can run 44 is impressive.
if you're a
I
19.5
can run
guy, you can
44.
run 44 seconds. Like, it's just like you can. It's just
I
like
agree.
I'm willing to
I agree. I
bet
would.
my entire salary that Noah Lyles
What
can
would
run
you?
44 seconds.
What would you have been impressed about with Lyles' time? Like, what mark would he have needed to run for you to be impressed?
30 mid, 30 low,
What's the world
30
record?
mid. So the reason why is because I was at that track and I watched another 400-meter run 31.9. So like that's impressive to me for some reason
Well, he
because
ran.
I've seen other elite athletes do it. Like Tony, I was at that exact track in 2016 and I watched Tony McQuay run 31.8 or 31.9.
Okay, well, the world record's 30.8 by Wade Van Niekerk. He's pretty good. So you wanted 30 mid? You wanted him to break the world record
Yeah.
by 3/10? What are you talking about?
It's a fake world record. Come on.
Okay, Usain Bolt ran 30, or Michael Johnson ran 31.85. Usain Bolt ran 30.97. I mean, Merritt at pre ran 31.3. Wait, what? So what did he run? What did Lyles run?
Maybe they ran 32. Maybe he ran 32-1.
Well, 3/10 is a big difference
I
here.
know.
I it was an impressive showing. I know he didn't break the world record by a half a second, so it wasn't as impressive for you. But I'm looking up the time here. I want to find this officially here.
Yeah. Yeah. Hold on.
Hold
Maybe
on.
I'm off
Okay,
by a
sorry,
whole
sorry.
second.
30. No,
Maybe
no.
I'm off by.
31:51 is what Lyles run, not 31.3.
Okay. Yeah. So he ran
31:51.
31:51. Okay. So Tony McQuay ran 31. He ran 31.9. What did he run?
Okay, but 4/10 is a lot, dude.
I guess it is. That's a good
14:46 in
point.
the 150. 31. So 31:51. That's hand time, but that would be the 11th fastest all time in practice. It's pretty good. Did you see the tweet between Grant Holloway and Rye Benjamin about the 200-meter hurdles? Do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, that pissed me off. Grant Holloway said "fuck you" to me on Twitter because I called him out on it. Bullshit.
Explicit content here. Do you want to explain?
So we did a podcast with Grant Holloway literally yesterday. Today's June 19th, so yesterday
No, you
on
did
June
it. No,
18th.
you did it. No, it posted yesterday. You did it with him on
Oh, we
Wednesday night.
posted. Oh, we did 2 days ago. Sorry.
Yeah.
And
Be honest with.
he kept on giving me a hard time for asking him about how he would do in non-110 hurdle events, right? We brought up, hey, do you think you could beat Carson Woolholm in the 300-meter hurdles? Or like, because he
Mhm.
always gets that question. Because if you run 43 seconds in a 400 and you're a sub 13-second hurdler, you're going to be asked like about, when you're such a talent, when you're jumping over 8 meters in a long jump, you're going to be asked like,
Yeah.
hey, when are you going to do other events, right? People want to see more. People want to see him run 100 or be in a 4x1.
Mm.
And he gave me a hard time. He's like, dude, everyone just keeps on asking me these like what am I gonna do in another event? And he just gave me a super hard time saying it was a shitty question. And he was good banter. He wasn't truly upset. But then he was like saying it was a trash question to ask him about who would win in these hypothetical races. And then literally less than 24 hours, a fan tweets at him, hey, who would win in a 200 hurdle, you or Rye Benjamin? And he's like, that's a great question. And I'm like, what the hell, dude? I was asking that exact question. And you were like, telling me it was a trash question. I think
Who would
it
win?
pointed out that he actually doesn't care. He just wanted to perform that it bothered him when really it doesn't bother him because he acknowledges it's an interesting question. Who do you think would win in a 200 hurdle, Rye or Grant?
Grant.
You think Grant would win?
Rye Benjamin's a really good 200-meter runner.
Yeah.
Very very underrated. Talk about people who'd be good in the 200. Grant's never. So strangely enough, he's never really run a fast 200. Grant had, right? He's got these awesome 4x4 splits.
Yeah.
And he's obviously run. I mean, he doesn't have a fast. What's his 100 PR? He has that 60 time. It's really interesting to look at his PRs. I would take Rye in that one. I would take Rye.
Well, you have to take Rye because Rye knows what it's like to jump over more than 10 hurdles. Well, maybe not more than 10 hurdles, but like.
Well, no, it's 10. It's just spread out.
Yeah. He knows what it's like to jump over hurdles over
10, yeah, less than 10.
More. He knows what it's like to jump over hurdles over a longer distance, right?
Yeah.
When you've been doing 300-meter hurdlers in your life and 400, and when it's just different. I feel like having the steps down, like Grant has never had to do that, like learning steps and stuff like that. He just like three steps for short hurdles.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for high hurdles. Mm-hmm. So he's like, oh, now I got to think about 10 or 7 or what, it would take him time to figure that out. Whereas Rye would be more prepared for it.
Yeah. It's a good question.
I'd like to watch it.
And by that, I mean, it's a trash question. Don't ask those questions again. Don't do that.
Man. Well, I want to go back to USATF. Okay.
Hold on. In his defense, though, you've been asking him questions like that for 3 years. So you kind of, you burned your privilege to ask that question when, when he was a freshman, you're like, so the decathlon, huh? You went out too hard.
I did.
Go back to USATF, but I'm going to defend them. Go ahead.
So this whole debacle of them saying you're incorrect, what you read on our website is incorrect. The classic like, how dare you read what's on our website and take it for truth?
So they
You should
redid.
allow
Hold on,
us
let
to
me
put
add
up.
in here. They like redid the website. I heard this before because I thought when I read it at the time, those BU times weren't going to count for trials qualifiers because that's how it was written on the website. And then I called somebody and they assured me that they had spoken to somebody within the organization that that marks would count because the way it was written, it was like indoor marks don't count until January or something like that. They had it and it was wrong because there were people at BU who ran really fast in that December
Okay,
meeting.
so
Go
this
ahead.
is.
Sorry.
I was gonna say this is a
This is an ongoing
trifecta
thing.
of their. I was gonna say this is a trifecta of USATF saying, actually, we lied. Sorry, and
Yeah.
it's no big deal. But now I guess it's a quad. What's a trifecta? Quadrecta? What's the four?
It's
What's the
quad, yeah.
four of?
I can't. Just
But
keep
is it
going, man. I can't.
fecta? Quadfecta? It's quadfecta.
Just keep going.
That's definitely not it.
Okay.
But think about when they were like, "Oh, actually, sorry, our Pan Am Games selection was off. We didn't mean it," and they had to change their Pan Am's team back and forth.
Yeah,
Remember
yeah.
that whole debacle? That was crazy, and it was all because they wrote it wrong on their website and they didn't follow their own rules. So that's two. Number three, I mean, they were like, "Oh yeah, Mount Sac, you can't have the trials because your stadium isn't
Oh,
going to
that's
be
different.
done."
That's different. That's
And
different.
then
You
they
can't
took it.
loop that in.
That's not. No, it's not different. Why did they take it away? The whole reason for
Well, that's
taking the trials away from Mount Sac was because their stadium wasn't going to be done, and their stadium
yeah.
was literally done. Is literally done now. It's done
I
before Eugene
I
Stadium.
understand that. I understand. I'm saying putting a hosting situation in with the same bucket of rules around qualifying is two different groups of people, two different entities. So that I wouldn't loop that one in, but I'm sure you could go not too far back and find other ones. Look, there's so many rules in track. Nobody knows what's going on, and you have a big organization. A lot of them are volunteers or are not paid that much. So I know it's not any consolation to the athletes or meet directors when things go wrong, but things are going to continue. This is going to continue to happen. There's going to be these little hiccups, but if you're going to look for a positive here, at least they'll figure something out before these meets start, right? No meets happened yet, unless I've missed one, right? Nothing's happening before August that would be sanctioned, right?
I mean, high school kids, right? They got those meets going down
Yeah, there's
like
9 more
hot
sub
potatoes.
4 attempts happening. Yeah, exactly.
There are like two more
Leo
sub four
Dashback's
attempts,
going
I
for
think. I
yeah.
read on
Cruz
Milesplit that.
Culpepper
Yeah.
Cruz Culpepper and Matt Strangio, I think, are both trying to break for it. It's the endless summer for the high school kids. They didn't get a season, so they're like, we get to go to August, and it still counts as a high school attempt, right? That's fair.
What if like an AAU kid goes out there for at the Junior Olympic Games and like runs Olympic trials qualifying sprint time? Are they going to count it?
Mm,
Hopefully they do.
I would
The
hope
next
they'd be
Tyrese
able
Cooper,
to.
right?
Yeah, if Culpepper goes under 4, that would mean because he's going to Washington, correct? You're the
Yes,
prep correspondent on the show. That would
I believe
mean
so.
him him and Dashback would be going to UW next year. They'd have two sub 4 people on the same team. Sub 4 high schoolers
Yeah,
on the same team. It's a lot of pressure.
I mean it is, but also I'm just kind of like sub four is so 2000 like
One,
one
Alan
impressive.
Webb ruined it. Yeah.
Well, no, it's just
you
like
you have sub 4
the we
fatigue. I
did
get
when we
it. You
did,
have sub.
yeah. Well, when we did the whole ranking of sub four high schoolers, a majority of them don't become like time dominate the NCAA system, right? Like there's just so many 403 to 406 high schoolers who actually become dominant in the NCAA system, dominant
Yeah,
in the post collegiate system. So yeah,
yeah, yeah. No, I just thought of it from a historical perspective of it. It was this rare thing, and then we could almost have two on the same team. To further your point, next year, right? So not only is it not not a rare feat anymore, but it's so common that two two high school seniors could do it and then end up going to the same college the next year.
Yeah.
That's why I brought it up.
Well, it's also so common that two people could break four, and neither of them are the best recruit.
Who's the best
Think about
recruit
that.
for you to? Who
No,
is it?
best recruit in the country. You could have
Oh,
two sub 4 milers in the country, and neither of them are the best recruit in the country. That's crazy.
right. Yeah, yeah. Well, that one year, what was it? 15 or 17 when two people broke it, and then two others. There was the year when Sam Worley almost broke it too, and
Yeah.
Cooper Tier almost broke it. There were two people or four people, I think, who were 4 flat or lower in one year. I think by that point, if you hadn't understood that it was going to become more common, then you were not going to be convinced. But yeah, they're getting after it. They're certainly getting after it this summer. So we'll see about these qualifying times. I know you'll be refreshing the website frequently.
Yeah. We have a big track meet tonight in Austin, Texas, 8 p.m.
Oh, is this it? Oh,
at
geez.
a track that we shall not name. It's gonna be a great meet. We have a rabbit for this race. My girlfriend JoJo is gonna be attempting to run a really fast mile, and we're really excited.
Sub 5.
So hopefully it gets USATF sanctioned, and then we can submit it into the qualification process. Right. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. Do you have a rail? Do you have a rail?
We don't have a rail. We also don't have a mile start line, so I had to bust out a tape measure and just add 9 meters to the start finish line. So,
well, you're going to need that anyway for certification purposes. You need a wet bulb thermometer, a steel measuring tape. You need all these bits of equipment here. You need a surveyor to go out and make sure it's level. Yeah. So will you tell me where it is? I'm not going to go, but
no, it's okay.
I'm assuming this isn't at the
I'll
normal track, right?
The normal track? No, it's at the track where it's illegal to sprint on.
Remember I talked about that? Why'd you say that? Yeah, you're not supposed to say that. You said you weren't going to say it, and then you just said it.
Well, whatever.
Jeez.
No one's going to know what that track is. Like,
we're going to need to edit that out.
Google track that you're banned to sprint on in Austin, Texas. It's just crazy that we have a track that's illegal to sprint on.
Yeah, well, anyway, that means
she's going to
make sure she doesn't kick hard. That's all I'm saying.
I'm going to create a coverage page on FloTrack. I'm going to do the whole, have a results page, a schedule. We're going to have some post-race and pre-race interviews. Maybe I'll get a post-race workout Wednesday out of it or something.
Is there going to be a fire extinguisher?
Cool. There'll be a fire extinguisher, yeah. It'll be great. It's going to be a good time.
All right, we'll leave it there. FloTrackPodcast@gmail.com. A lot of people who love the show wrote in this week. Keep those emails coming. We appreciate it. Thanks to Gordon for co-hosting today. Thank you to Alon for producing. Have a great weekend, everyone. We'll see you on Monday.